In 1874, a Michigan doctor mailed a book to every public library in the state. Inside were more than 80 samples of beautiful wallpaper, vivid greens, deep blues, rich reds, all laced with arsenic. He wanted people to hold the danger in their hands. The problem was, the book itself was dangerous. The book was called Shadows from the Walls of Death. Its author, Robert Clark Kedzie, was a physician, a Civil War surgeon, and a chemistry professor at Michigan Agricultural College. He also sat on the Michigan State Board of Health. By 1873, he was convinced that wallpaper in ordinary American homes was slowly poisoning families. The culprit was a pigment called Scheele's green. A Swedish chemist named Carl Wilhelm Scheele had developed it in the late 1770s. It was cheap, vivid, and resistant to fading, exactly what a wallpaper printer wanted. The catch was its chemistry. Scheele's green was copper arsenite. A close relative, sold as Paris green or emerald green, was copper acetoarsenite. Both contained significant amounts of arsenic. By the 1850s, arsenical pigments were everywhere. England alone produced an estimated 700 tons of Scheele's green in a single year. The pigment colored toys, candy wrappers, candles, artificial flowers, dress fabrics, and lampshades. Its biggest market was wallpaper. New machine printing methods made wallpaper affordable, and they helped turn arsenical wallpaper from a luxury into something a middle-class family could paste across every room. The symptoms were hard to pin down. Families reported headaches, nausea, skin sores, and persistent illness that doctors struggled to explain. Children were especially vulnerable. In damp conditions, the arsenic in wallpaper could produce toxic dust, or some researchers believed, a poisonous gas. People breathed it in while they slept, ate beside it, and let their children play against it. The wallpaper itself looked fine. Kedzie investigated cases across Michigan. One involved a state representative whose family fell ill in their own home. Doctors were baffled until someone tested the wallpaper. The pattern kept repeating, sickness that tracked with rooms, not with seasons, food, or water. Kedzie collected evidence and brought it to the Board of Health. But warnings alone did not work. The wallpaper was too popular, too cheap, and too beautiful. Dealers kept selling it. Families kept buying it. So Kedzie tried something no one had done before. He went to wallpaper dealers in Lansing, Detroit, and Jackson. He bought samples of the most popular patterns, the ones people were actually putting in their homes. He wrote an 8-page preface laying out the medical evidence. Then he bound the real wallpaper into oversized volumes, each one about 22 by 30 inches, and called it Shadows from the Walls of Death. He produced around 100 copies and mailed them to public libraries across the state. The idea was radical in its simplicity. If people could see and touch the actual wallpaper that was poisoning homes, the danger would stop being abstract. They would recognize these patterns. They might find the same ones on their own walls. For a while, it worked. The book was a sensation. People came to libraries specifically to look at it. Newspapers covered the story. Combined with growing public pressure and the work of health advocates in Massachusetts and Britain, arsenical wallpaper started to fall out of fashion. By the early 1880s, safer pigments were gaining ground. By the 1890s, arsenic wallpaper poisoning had become rare. But Kedzie's warning carried its own problem. The book was made of the thing it warned against. Every page was a real sample of arsenical wallpaper, which meant every page could transfer arsenic. Readers who handled the book were touching the same toxic pigments Kedzie wanted them to avoid. Over the decades, librarians began to worry. Some libraries destroyed their copies. Others locked them away. Of the roughly 100 copies Kedzie sent out, only a handful survive today. In 2017, the National Library of Medicine decided to digitize its copy. Staff wore protective equipment. They tested surfaces for arsenic transfer and found measurable contamination on their gloves and scanning equipment. The book was still shedding poison more than 140 years after Kedzie assembled it. After digitization, conservators took the book apart. They separated each wallpaper page and sealed it inside a clear polyester sleeve, so future researchers could see the patterns without touching the pigments directly. Then they rebound the sealed pages into a new binder. The poison warning book had to be made safe from its own poison. The problem has not stayed in the 19th century. Libraries and museums around the world are finding arsenical pigments in their collections. Cloth-bound volumes dyed with emerald green, painted manuscripts, decorative objects, and old wallpaper books. A project at the University of Delaware has been cataloging poisonous books for years. In 2025, researchers at the University of St. Andrews built a handheld tool to screen old green books for arsenic without damaging them. The danger Kedzie warned about in 1874 is still being managed today. The story of shadows from the walls of death can sound like a strange footnote. A doctor made a poison book to warn people about poison. But arsenic was a known poison long before Kedzie collected his samples. Chemists had warned about it for decades. People kept buying arsenical wallpaper because the colors were beautiful, the prices were low, and the danger was invisible. It took a physical object, something they could hold and recognize, to make the abstract real. The warning worked so well that it became the hazard it exposed. We like to think we would notice danger. But Kedzie understood something about people that is still true. When the danger is beautiful enough, cheap enough, and normal enough, we put it on the walls and call it home.